Hey, welcome one and all to my YouTube channel. This is episode 8 of our weekly Roundup. My name is Bill Callahan and this is my channel, Fretboard Refugee. For those of you who are just joining us, every week I kind of do this show as a sort of way of keeping myself accountable. I talk a little about what I've been working on over the course of the week, talk about what kind of principles I have focused on, what kind of educational and learning techniques I have found helpful. It's kind of an exploration of guitar. It's a way of journaling my progress, which I also do in writing. But it's also an exploration of learning itself, how learning works, how teaching yourself something works, and I hope it's applicable to somebody who's learning anything at any stage of life. This is my main weekly outlet, really. I also post some of the songs I'm working on, works in progress. On Tuesdays, most Tuesdays, I do something in an alternate tuning. We call it Alternate Tuning Tuesdays. This week I'm going to look at a specific drop D lick and why it works in drop D, and just an opportunity to keep practicing it and try to show it off. On Thursdays I do, well, not every Thursday, but most Thursdays, I'll do Theory Thursday, which has so far been about, how scales work, how keys work, how the key relates to the scale, what chords are in a given key and why, and how that goes back to the major scale in that key, what relative minors are. This week I'm going to continue exploring scales and how to play them and how to learn them and how to use them. And I'm going to be highlighting a video by David Hamburger that talks about that concept. I am also going to be doing a special, which I believe I'm going to record later today, that's sort of everything I wish I had known about fingerstyle blues in general, that genre or family of genres that includes the kind of thing I was playing at the beginning of this episode, basically using finger-picked combination of bass notes with melody notes, both on the downbeat and on the eighth note in between. So that sort of thing. I'm going to talk about the genre, the various subgenres, and what I've learned about it and what I wish I'd known about it going in. So things I've been working on this week. I've been very focused the last really 3 weeks on fingerstyle blues. That's why I'm doing that specialized show. That piece I was playing at the beginning is David Hamburger teaching tune called The Vamp. And what it is a call and response blues, and it's all on an E chord, really. So there's this steady thumb bass, mostly on the low E string. And there's the call, what he calls the vamp, which is kind of this 1, 2. That's the call. And the response is usually something like this, although there are variants. And so on. And that elaborates over the course of the piece, and there are really 3 versions of that response that go with that call, and the whole thing comes together very nicely as a tune that I'm trying to get under my fingers. The timing was very tricky at first, but I'm getting there. I've been working on another David Hamburger sort of series. He has a YouTube series that I highlighted last week called 6 Steps to Playing Fingerstyle Blues in E. And we're kind of very similar to the vamp. We're on this steady thumb bass, and this is much more open-ended. He just wants you to keep coming back to this groove, and he talks about how to add chords to it, how to add licks to it, and sort of build organically from the thumb to something else. And he talks about like adding a shuffle 8th note, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then focused on here is just staying in that groove no matter what, even if I just have to keep going back to that groove and I add nothing. But there are things that go with it that come along that focuses on just adding these things as you can while keeping time and playing as slowly as you need to add those things. And he breaks down the theory of how those things work, and there is a link to this, the very first video in this series, in my previous weekly roundup. I would highly recommend checking it out. I've also been working on very simple coordination exercises to improve my fingerstyle blues. The way those work is you just start with that steady thumb bass, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then you start adding a pinch on the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And then you start adding a pinch on the and. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and so on. And there's variants too. You can do any number of variants of this. You can put those quarter notes wherever you want. For instance, you could do 1, 2, and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And you can just practice repeating one of those until it's effortless, and then you make it more complex to the point that you could be doing 1 and 2 and, I'm sorry, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, or even 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and just repeat one of those and just keep it going. That's going to come back in later when I get to my educational principle of the week. I've been working on a Mississippi John Hurt tune called Spike Driver Blues, and that's sort of a alternate bass fingerstyle blues in G. And much like the David Hamburger Vamp is all an E chord, this one just goes between G and G7. Sorry, I'm not getting that right now. I've been working on St. James Infirmary. I'm very early in the learning stages of that. That's a minor blues. It's actually an 8-bar blues, so slightly different format than what a lot of us are used to. And I've been working on both a strummed version of that. It sort of goes from I've also been working on a fingerstyle arrangement of that, which I do not have under my fingers yet. It's going to be a while, but that's what Kyle Orla is doing this month, and that's been very exciting because that's a tune I've been wanting to learn for a long time. I'm continuing to work on my electric guitar rhythm, particularly the rumba feel 12-bar blues. I'll show you a little of that later. The theme of the week is isolating licks. That is, in the course of a song, especially a fingerstyle song, but not just a fingerstyle song, there's the entire structure of the song, and then there will be a specific lick, and that lick could be the central riff of the song, or it could just be something that comes up occasionally. So in Spike Driver Blues, the version of the main lick of that Tony Policastro teaches sort of goes like this. So. And that sounds a lot like the main structure of the song. So what I've been doing to practice that is practicing that lick in isolation, then slowing down my performance of the main song, and either substituting that lick for the passages that are like it, or using that lick at the very end of the entire 12-bar progression as a sort of what you might call a vamp or a shout chorus, and then go back into the 12 bars. So I'll play through that. This is not going to be as fast as I play when I'm warmed up and not playing for the camera, but here goes nothing. So. Back into the main. That was not very good, but I hope that gives you some kind of idea of what I'm doing. So that's one thing, when you have a lick that's characteristic of a song, but it's not something you can play in the course of the song. You can sort of use it, especially in an informal style like blues, sort of in between choruses of the 12 bars. So it would be if you were singing a song, it would be something you might use as a bridge, or something you would use as a chorus between verses. That's more of an analogy than how it actually works, but I hope you understand what I'm getting at. Another thing is just to take a lick and loop it, even if it isn't something you play over and over again in the actual song. So this is a Hill Country Blues lick, sort of try that one more time. And just sort of loop it as if that's the whole song. You can do that to a metronome, you can do that with a verbal count. I would recommend starting with a verbal count, working up to a speed you're comfortable with, slowing that speed down slightly and trying to play it along with a metronome. That is what I've been doing to try to get a handle on whole songs, because the whole tune you can play sort of simplified version, especially in a style like fingerstyle blues, something with less syncopation, fewer hammer-ons, something you can sing over. And then when you get to that place where you're going to do another chorus, you can just play a looped version of that lick as the kind of something that functions much like a chorus would function in a rock or pop song. That's the theme of the week. My educational concept of the week is a little more esoteric, and I'm talking about the idea of desensitization or exposure. Now, part of what that looks like on a meta level is what this channel is about. This was because the first couple times I tried to record myself playing, I was too nervous to play well at all, and I went down to like, maybe 30% of my abilities when I was recording myself. Now I'm probably closer to 60% of my abilities while I'm recording myself, which tells you how far I have to go in my abilities since you've seen my recorded performance. But what it has done is made me less nervous about playing with a recorder, playing with a camera on or an audio recording going. It's also made me slightly less nervous when I'm playing within earshot of somebody. I don't feel as self-conscious of my playing because I'm used to the idea of somebody's going to hear this. In a much more practical sense, there's other kinds of pressure you can desensitize yourself to other than stage fright or performance anxiety. There's also speed anxiety. Let's say you're playing through a scale. And you're nervous about, the metronome speeding up. So what I would advise you to do is play for a while at a speed you're comfortable at, that you can consistently do, and then try to play faster than you know you can. What does that look like? That might be... Inevitably, you will get to a speed where you make a mistake, and guess what? Nothing bad happens. As long as you correct yourself, you go back to the groove, you start again, you wait a second, you count yourself in. The thing that you were afraid of, the thing your fingers were tensing up about, has already happened, and it's not a big deal. So soon enough, you'll find yourself much more relaxed playing that same thing, conserving much more tension, able to play it much, much longer. And you haven't really lost anything. You've gotten one bad rep, and you've immediately corrected it with several good reps. Now, a way to make this work as an effective learning tool, especially if you're using a metronome, is to play at the speed where you fall apart, make the mistake once, go back to a speed where you can do it in your sleep, and correct the mistake several dozen times. So you've built that muscle memory of doing it right. You've also built that emotional memory of the failure happened and it wasn't a big deal. I kind of call that failure by design. Now this makes me think of something in the Buddhist meditative tradition, what's called vipassana or mindfulness meditation. The idea is you draw your attention to your breath. Inevitably thoughts come in and distract you from your breath. You acknowledge that you've been distracted and go back to your breath. And that's not a failure in the meditation. That's the whole point of the meditation. The thing you're practicing is getting your attention back to your breath, not breaking your attention. I mean, that will come with time, eventually, to a degree. But the thing you're really practicing is restoring that focus without judgment. And that is, I mentioned that groove practice earlier. Let's get back on that groove. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say you're going to try. Let's say you're going to try to throw in some of those licks. And you hit a wrong note. Like that. So what do? You get back to it. And you're going to make mistakes. As you get faster and faster, you're going to make more and more mistakes. But if you think about what you're practicing is getting that lick perfect, it's going to be a miserable time for you. If you think about what you're practicing is getting back to that groove, well, every time you screw up, there's an opportunity for a success in getting that groove again. And eventually you'll find that getting that groove, staying that groove, finding that groove, being able to jump in at any point with that groove becomes less and less of a big deal. And then soon enough, doing the licks themselves become less of a big deal. And missing one of the licks, not a big deal at all, because you can always find that groove again. And that's kind of the whole point. That's what I've tried to focus on as I've worked on these specific practices. And you can apply that idea to that groove practice. You can also apply that idea to that coordination exercise I was talking about. Every time I make a mistake, and I made several there, I just went back to the same thing. I started to count again. And that's how you make the most of your practice time, because instead of like, oh, I screwed up, I got to start from the beginning, it's a looped thing. You're always at the beginning. If you have an audible metronome with a distinct one beat, you can just get back on whatever count you're on, pass the next one beat, and then count in when it comes again. 3, 4, 1. So unlike playing a song through, practicing a whole song, it has applications there too. I'll expand on that in a second. You're just practicing that measure, and you're never more than 3 beats away from a new measure. So even if you screw up on the first beat of every measure, you get an entire 10 minutes of practice on that, getting that one beat right, and soon enough that won't be the issue. I have found that very valuable in this groove style practice, this timing practice. It's drastically improved my sense of time. So that is our educational concept of the week: exposure therapy, desensitization. My instrument of the week, this is a bit of a jump. Is this thing right here, which is a baritone ukulele. Now, what makes a baritone ukulele a baritone ukulele? Well, there's 4 sizes of ukulele. They go soprano, concert, tenor, and baritone. The baritone is bigger, voice deeper, but it also has a different tuning than your standard ukulele. This tuning is D, G, B, E. If that sounds familiar, it's because those are the 4 highest strings of a guitar. So, what does that mean? That means that your chord voicings from a guitar can almost all be applied directly to this instrument without modification. So, in some cases you're missing strings, not a big deal. So here's an E chord. We're on the 1st fret of the G string, just as we would be on our full-size guitar. We're on the 2nd fret of the D string. We don't have a low E string. We don't have a low A string. We do have a high E string. So that's still an E major. That's still an E minor. This is still an A major. That's still an A minor. That's still a D major. That's still a D7. Your G is going to look a little different, but what you just did, you just bar the 2 highest strings. You don't have that G note on your high E string, but you have a G note here. On your low E string, but you do have a G note on your high E string. you can play through an entire song you know on guitar without much trouble. What's great about this is it's quiet, it has nylon strings, it's portable, it's light, you can have it in the passenger seat of your car and it's not a big deal. You get a break at work, you can strum for a while. What you really can't practice on this is the kind of fingerstyle blues I like because they're so dependent on the bass strings. But you can practice most of your licks, you can practice, without much trouble. Practice whatever licks you're working on that are not on the bass strings. You can definitely practice strumming songs. You can practice your vocals. It does have an interesting sound. It's a much warmer sound because of the nylon strings, which really lends itself to getting some reps in with your more chordal songs. You can play 12-bar blues on here all day. Like if you're an E, like here's your that in most keys without much trouble. It's a great way to hone your sense of rhythm. It's a great way to work on your vocals, and it's a great way to just get reps on your chordal songs. Featured piece of gear for the week, and this is another departure from what we've been talking about. This is my electric guitar, and we are plugged into a featured piece of gear, which is, I'll show it to you real quick here. There it is. That is a Fender Mustang LT25 practice amp. It's a very inexpensive amp. It's retails for around $150. I got it for less. I talked the guy down. I got it the same time I got this guitar. And what's cool about this amp is it's not a traditional tube amp. It is entirely solid state, but it has software-based emulations of different amps and different effects. So if you want to get into electric guitar, but you don't want to spend your entire life savings on a bunch of, dog stopped by to say hello, on a bunch of effects pedals, this lets you try out different effects. And if you're just working on your scales, let's just work on some scales. This is a clean tone right now. This is a generic clean Fender tone. So. Let's say I'm playing through that scale shape and things get kind of boring. What do? Well, you can switch to a setting that gives you some effects. Here's a tremolo effect. One of the things that I've been working on is that rumba in G that I mentioned. Let's play with that for a minute. tremolo sounds on the blues, so let's try a different setting here. All right, let's try this one. Now let's say I've been practicing that for 20 minutes, it's getting kind of old. Let's switch it up again. Ooh, that's cool. Switch it up one more time. Now let's play with some licks. How about this one? Try one more setting of that. Do that lick one more time. So what's cool about this is it lets you get a lot of variety when you're practicing the same thing. It also lets you experiment with different sounds, different effects. If you don't want to go out and buy, let's say a wah pedal, there's a setting for that. So that's fun. How about vibrato? Let's do the same thing with vibrato. So it's a great way to figure out if you like a given effect. It's a great way to add variety to your rote practice of things like scales. Suddenly that same G major scale that you've played through 1,000 times, or let's do an E minor pentatonic. Let's do this position. So that's a way to add some fun and some variety to your electric practice. And it's an accessible way to try to attain some of the sounds that you've heard on records that you want to emulate if you don't want to run out and spend $200 each on a bunch of boutique pedals. I'm not saying it's as good as a tube amp, and I'm not saying those effects are as good as what you'll get for effects pedals, but at my level, it really doesn't make a difference. It's fun. It adds to my practice. Fender LT25 Mustang solid state amp. Very cheap, very good. Lastly, my shout out for the week is to a teacher named Mamie Minch out of New York City. She is a touring professional musician who has some albums out, and she is one of Acoustic Guitar Magazine's featured teachers. So you'll see a little tabulature lessons from her in Acoustic Guitar Magazine. And if you go to the Acoustic Guitar Magazine website associated with that issue, there's online, like, actual lessons. And she has one that I'm going to put in the comments here on a drop D lick from a song of hers called Razorburn Blues. It's a very fun lick to play. She does a great job teaching it. And I think I've seen a few of her videos, and I'm highlighting this one in particular because we're going to go over it tomorrow in Alternate Tuning Tuesday, but she is very talented and she's a very skilled teacher and very personable. So I think you will enjoy that. Check it out tomorrow, and I'll put a link to that video with the appropriate timestamps in the description. So thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. I appreciate your time. Have a great Monday.